Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about one of the two main Sufi orders in Kurdistan, which is the Naqshbandi Sufi order. I definitely said that wrong, but I hope you can forgive me. They were one of the key influencing orders in terms of Kurdish nationalism. So we've already looked through all the videos of the Kurdish Emirates and how they sort of disappeared. Their authority within actual Kurdistan went to the religious authority, so this Sufi order, and I'm gonna look into it now and do a little bit of research on it. So this order originated in Central Asia during the 14th century. However, it was present in Kurdistan before the 19th century. It had sort of a fluctuating presence for around 3-4 centuries. However, by the 19th century, it was fully established within Kurdistan. So the Naqshbandiya, which is this Sufi sect, is recognized as strictly orthodox, emphasizing adherence to the Sharia law. Many ulama, which means like men of learning, in the 17th century belonged to it. So the widespread of this sort of order is attributed to Sheikh Khalid al-Kurdi, who was alive from 1776 to 1827, and he's primarily attributed the spread of the influence here. And he received initiation into the branch of the order in India because it originally came from Central Asia, and he returned back to Iraq in 1811, the Ottoman Empire at the time, and his activities spurred an expansion of the order between the Kurds from 1811 to 1827. So the resulting Khalidi Naqshbandism rapidly surpassed the previously dominant Qadiri order, which is the other Sufi order that was popular in Kurdistan at the time. So Mawlana Khalid was successful in converting members of important Qadiri families, including his own Qadiri instructor, the past Sheikh Ubaydullah of Nehri. So his movement spread rapidly, partly because it was structured well for autonomous growth, and his caliphs were often authorized to instruct independently. So he appointed over 65 caliphs, approximately half who were Kurdish. He made it accessible to the Ummah, which was different to the early 1800s when it had only been attractive to the urban elite, and it was seen as a way to confront the ascendancy of Christian Europe, and it appealed to the Ottoman capital because of its firm commitment to Sunni Islam. However, Khalid also exhorted his disciples to appeal to God to annihilate the Jews, Christians, fire worshippers, and Iranian Shiites, which reflects the sectarian conflicts of the time. So the organization of this Naqshbandi network cut through all tribal boundaries that were present at the time. The order was generally not centralized, and it lacked a generally acknowledged head succeeding Mawlana Khalid, and conflicts often arose amongst the Naqshbandi sheikhs who lived near each other, competing for the same disciples. So the followers of this Naqshbandi path are generally called Sufis, and sometimes their movement are referred to as having distinct character. So what distinguishes them is the ritual gatherings from this order. It's predominantly silent, and ecstasy is discouraged. So they became the most influential indigenous leaders of Kurdistan, serving as focal points for loyalties that transcended tribal affiliations, especially after the collapse of the Kurdish Emirates, like I said before. So there are key leaders that I will look at individually in future videos and their rebellions. For instance, Sheikh Ubaydullah of Nehri, he had a rebellion in 1880 that is regarded as the first sort of Kurdish nationalist uprising. He was a Naqshbandi sheikh from the prominent Semdinan family. He was one of the most significant leaders in the late 19th century. He revolted against the Qajars and the Ottoman Empire, and he demanded a Kurdish state. So his movement within the rebellion fused Islamic revivalism with Kurdish ethno-nationalist aspirations. He criticized the degeneration of Sufi orders within Kurdistan and sought to revive the Sufi tradition, focusing solely on the situation in Kurdistan instead of the greater Muslim world. Another prominent Naqshbandi dynasty was this Bazan Sheikhdom, which Bazani, they all come from these Naqshbandi Sufi orders. The sheikhs of Bazan were rivals with the sheikhs of Nehri. They were two rival dynasties, but the Bazani tribal leaders gained prominence and influence in the socio-political areas by taking on the caliphate of the Naqshbandi order. So Sheikh Ahmad Bazani, who was the elder brother of Mullah Mustafa Bazani, was declared divine by his followers in periods of crisis. But even before then, Sheikh Abdul Salam Bazani, he revolted against the Ottoman Empire and he was executed in 1914. These are people that I will look at in future videos. Another Naqshbandi sheikh that led a revolt was Sheikh Said in 1925 in eastern Turkey. He launched his rebellion, which was unsuccessful, but his movement reflected sound Naqshbandi objectives, such as desiring freedom from Ankara's rule and the restoration of the caliphate. So the legacy of Naqshbandi divines remains evident within Turkish Islamic synthesis, so there are still sort of movements. It still remains deeply intertwined in Kurdish life. So the Naqshbandiya, which is this group, have been the major conduits for nationalist ideas, and they were the taqiyas, which is Sufi lodges where they would meet, were significant centers for disseminating nationalist ideas because the concept bore the authority stamp of the sheikhs and enjoyed relative immunity from state harassment. And after the decline of the Kurdish Emirates, they inherited the authority of former tribal leaders. And because they had these religious titles, they had the ability to be trans-tribal leaders. So they would be mediators as a sort. They wielded influences over the tribal leaders, the Agas, and they also exercised a dual religious and political rule. And the network of their religious schools, their madrasas, functioned as mechanisms of social integration, overcoming division. This environment where students from various different parts of Kurdistan met and cultivated the Kurdish language was seen as the initial birthplace of the idea of a Kurdish national identity, influenced by the Naqshbandi order. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned a little bit more about the Naqshbandi order. We'll look at some of their prominent sheikhs in future videos, so thank you.